Places. Everyone.
We're now broadcasting.
Roll the tape in 3, 2.
A new audio drama.
Appaloosa Radio is where stories come alive.
Real audio drama.
Don't Touch Anything by Jody Carnes-Hart for Appaloosa Radio. I have recently retired from my position as the Chief Technology Officer for a large, California state agency. I am now spending much of my time sharing stories about how technology has impacted us. This is a story from my husband, from a summer job that he had in 1968. That summer, he worked in the collating room at a company that produced a unique product, the so-called secret book of listings that every real estate agent carried with them. My husband's company had contracted with the various boards of realtors across Southern California to produce new books every week. Here's how it worked. A local board of realtors would type up a 3x5 card with all of the particulars of the property's listing, and then a photographer from my husband's company would pick up the card and then photograph the property using a specially designed Polaroid camera. At the company, the Polaroid photograph and the card would be photo-transferred to a paper ITEK plate and then printed on an offset printing press. Remarkably efficient technology for the time. In the collating room, the various books would be made up for delivery back to the customers. The collating room had a massive machine that could collate 19 separate pages at a time. Once a book had been collated, a worker would drill holes so the pages could be inserted into a binder. Nearly all the collating was done on the graveyard shift, from 11:30 to 8 o'clock in the morning. When my husband was hired, he was the 8th member of the collating team. Unfortunately, the collating room was also the company's major bottleneck. Books were not being completed on time and with the correct property listings. The company had decided to add a second collating machine, and my husband was to be trained as one of the operators. On the 4th night that my husband worked there, the entire collating team staged a mass walkout. The issue, I believe, was that an employee was fired for being drunk on the job. Everybody, that is, except the new trainee, my husband. He showed up for his shift to find that he was alone in the collating room, and he was still learning how to adjust the temperamental air suction systems. He checked the orders sheet and learned that 56 books were to go out that night, a heavy output. A few minutes later, Norman arrived. My husband did not know who he was or what was his role. It turns out that Norman was the brother-in-law of one of the company's founding partners, and had been instrumental in designing the collating machines. Norman was a man of few words. He grunted a greeting and then said, "Stay back, I need to get it right." After a few minutes tinkering, the collating machines, yes both, were running efficiently at a moderate speed. They tried to run them too fast. Messed up the pressure. That shift, my husband kept bringing in the stacks of printed pages from the print room and Norman would load them into the stackers. Norman never moved fast, but he never stopped the machines. When one book was done, he would turn off the suction and load another. Then, at 3:30, he told my husband, "We're going for lunch." Norman loved bowling and he took my husband to a bowling alley where they both had soup and a sandwich. Then, Norman bowled a couple of games. "Practice for the big tournament, this weekend," he said. Back at the plant, the collating machines were started up again. By 5 o'clock, they had finished all 56 books. Understand that a crew of 8 workers could barely get 20 books completed during a shift. Norman and the newbie had collated 56 books, and still had time for a bowling break. Nobody was yelling at anybody. Nobody was racing around telling everybody to hurry up. Nobody was making mistakes. It took Norman a couple of weeks to train my husband. Then, my husband did it all by himself. When the summer ended, my husband quit to go back to college, and the company brought in a new employee. My husband helped Norman to train the new guy. His only advice was simple. Don't touch anything. Norman has it just the way he likes.